I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into The Locker Room, and we have some big news to start off immediately. This intro just got so much more simpler. So much more simple. It got simpler. You know what I'm trying to say. Listen. The Locker Room podcast has changed its social media to all be the same thing. So now you have no excuse. Because there were some of you that are like, Jacob, there's just too many things to memorize. I don't want to keep having to go through. You're right. I got it. I felt it. And I changed it. So, in order to stay up to date on everything the Locker Room has going on, it's simple. Follow the Locker Room podcast on our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok at TLR Podcast 615. That is TLR Podcast 615. This episode is brought to you by our very good friends at FNX Fitness. Go to fnxfit.com. That is fnxfit.com for 15% off your order. So the name of this episode is Hoop Questions, and that is because I have a ton of hoop questions that have got to get answered on today's show. So we've got LeBron James' scrutiny versus Kevin Durant's scrutiny after getting bounced in the playoffs. We've got the top 5 players under the age of 25. We're going to talk NBA playoffs. We've got a bunch to get to, so here we go. We are starting off with the top 5 players under the age of 25. So the reason I chose 25 instead of 26, people consider 25 still young. It seems like when you hit 26, for some reason, our society instantly goes like, dude, you are almost to 30. You're getting up there in age. 25 is still considered, I would say, a child when it comes to professional sports. 25 is still a baby. You have Giannis, who's 26, Jokic, who's 26. You have Joel Embiid, who is 28, I believe. So there's a lot of guys that are very young and, of course, are all-stars and superstars. And we're going to shy away from the 26-year-olds. Let's stick with the 25 and under. The number one best player under the age of 25, and this kid still has, and I'm calling him a kid because I'm 3 years older than him, this kid still has 3 years before he even gets to 25. The number one young player out there right now, Luka Doncic. For me, it's undeniable that Luka Doncic has to be the number one player under the age of 25. There's not any player that I can name that comes after this list, or after this name on this list, that you would put ahead of Luka. And if so, you don't watch basketball. You're not going to put Jayson Tatum above Luka Doncic. You're not putting Devin Booker. You're not putting Donovan Mitchell. You're not putting Zion Williamson. You're not putting Moran, not Jaylen Brown, not Darren Fox. None of these guys, not Karl Anthony Towns, none of these guys are going ahead of Luka Doncic. This dude is one of the top 5 best players in the NBA right now. So you best believe he's the number one player under the age of 25. Luka Doncic is on his way to being the best player in the NBA in the next, 3 years. I truly believe Luka Doncic is going to be a generational type player. Somebody that we are talking about in 10, 15 years as one of the best players that has ever played this game. People call him Baby Bird as a reference to Larry Bird, and this dude is 22 years old. Let me give you a stunning fact from Luka Doncic's short playoff career. Listen, Luka Doncic has made the playoff the last 2 years. He's played the Los Angeles Clippers, which has the 2 best wing defenders in all of basketball, I'm told. And all Luka Doncic has done is he's dropped 5 40-point playoff games in his first 2 playoff series. Not including a 39-point game, a 38-point game, a 37-point game, and a 36-point game. You're telling me that this kid in his first 2 playoff series against the 2 best wing defenders in all of basketball, so I'm told, and I will preface this by saying so I'm told every single time because we have not seen Paul George or Kwai Leonard do what they used to do, which was lock defenders down and score 28 on the other end. Or lock players down and defend at a high level and score 28 on the other end of the court. We have not seen that happen in years. And Luka Doncic did this to the 2 best wing defenders in all of basketball. 5 40-point games. I mean, he is shattering records for his age. He's already in the conversations with LeBron Jameses, the Michael Jordans, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbars. Like, this dude's already in those conversations, and he's 22. I mean, I'm not going to lie. He makes me feel like a bucket of crap. I'm 25, still working things out, still struggling. I got a puppy that I'm just trying to form my mind around taking care of, and this dude over here is just dominating. I mean, just dominating the world at 22 years old. Luka Doncic has got to be your number one. At number 2, I'm going to go with Jayson Tatum. Jayson Tatum is a very interesting one here because Jayson Tatum is either loved or hated. There's no in between with Jayson Tatum. People either love his game and think he's a superstar, and I've talked to people that hate him, think that all he is a worse version of Kobe. Someone who just puts up a ton of shots and, you know, he looks good in the stat books, but he's not that good of a transcendent player. Listen, this dude's like 6'9", so he's a massive dude already. He's all he's done is he's averaged 26 and 7. He's led Boston to a 27 and 23 playoff record, which is a positive win share. I know it's close to 50-50, but still, you got to think of these Boston teams as well. He led this Boston team against LeBron James and almost beat him in 7 games. He dropped 40 on Kevin Durant's head earlier in these playoffs, averaging 26 points a game, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Jayson Tatum is the next best young player in this league. I think the thing that separates the Luka Doncic's and Jayson Tatum's of the world is the fact that they've been asked to carry the weight of their teams instantly. Now, Jayson Tatum, when Jaylen Brown came around, and Jaylen Brown has been magnificent, he's on the cusp of a top 5 player under the age of 25. I mean, Jaylen Brown's been incredible for them. But before he came around, they expected magic to happen, and that is what they do to these young guys like the Lukas and the Jayson Tatums. They expect these guys to just turn the franchise around, start winning ball games instantly, and dominating the league, and it doesn't happen that way. There are very few guys like LeBron James who can come in at the ripe age of 18 or 19 and in his third or fourth year lead a team to the playoffs or win playoff games. There's very few guys that can do that in the NBA. Jayson Tatum's one of those guys who's been asked to carry the burden of the Boston Celtics. They try and get him help. Gordon Hayward gets hurt. Kemba Walker no longer is a Boston Celtic. He's been pathetic. The front office, I believe, has hurt that Boston Celtics team and has hurt Jayson Tatum more than they have helped him. And Jayson Tatum still goes out there, drops 26 a night, and he's a transcendent scorer of the basketball, and he's slowly becoming a much better defender. That is Luka's biggest weakness, of course, is defense. But Jayson Tatum's a very good defender. He is behind Luka for the simple fact that Luka's a transcendent player, but Jayson Tatum is an all-star and superstar in the very near future. At number 3, and this is probably that gray area where you could go a couple different players here. It's more based on preference. For me, this player has been wildly disrespected over the last few years. What he did at the end of last season, at the beginning of the bubble, before he got bounced from the playoffs, was just beat the Los Angeles Clippers, was just win 8 straight games, and he still fell short. But this dude, we knew after last season, after they went on that beautiful win streak in the bubble, after they got bounced from the playoffs, but he was hitting buzzer beaters over Kwai Leonard and Paul George. We knew this guy was on his way to be a superstar, but he has been wildly disrespected, and that is Devin Booker. At the ripe age of 24, he's in his very first playoff run, and this is what's so mind-blowing. This man is in his very first playoff run, and he's in the Western Conference Finals, facing arguably the second best team in the West, and all he did was hang 40 on them. Just let that sink in. This kid is on his very first playoff run at 24 years old, and he is in the Western Conference Finals, and if they beat the Los Angeles Clippers, like I think they will, like we'll talk about later in the show, this man will be playing in an NBA Finals game in just a few short weeks in his very first playoff run. Now, Chris Paul does have a lot to do with it, but what's so extraordinary is last game, they made Devin Booker be the everything. They made Devin Booker have to pass the basketball, have to rebound the basketball, have to defend at a high level, and also, we need you to drop 40 or we're going to lose this basketball game. And, by the way, we're going to chop off one of your arms because Chris Paul is not going to be there to facilitate everything, so you're going to have to do it all. And he did nothing but rise to the occasion. Devin Booker is probably the most mentally strong young star under the age of 25. He's more mentally strong than Luka, more mentally strong than Jayson Tatum, than Donovan Mitchell, than whoever. We have not seen, at least as of yet, we have not seen Devin Booker shrink mentally in the fourth quarter. His point, he might not be dropping 15, 20 points in the fourth quarter, but we have never seen Devin Booker shrink mentally. He has, and RIP, we miss you, Kobe, but he has Mamba mentality. I think Stephen A. Smith was very accurate when he said, Devin Booker is the closest thing we might get to the next Kobe Bryant. But the reality is this guy has Mamba mentality. When the game gets tough, he gets better. When the game gets close, he puts his team up. When the team needs him most, what Kobe was so great at is when they needed Kobe the most. Kobe was that guy that was going to get you that bucket. Kobe was that guy that was going to give you that defensive stop. Kobe was that guy that was going to give you the best pass that he could possible. Now, Kobe didn't pass a whole lot. we got that. But Devin Booker last game was asked to pass the ball as accurate and as great as he has ever had to in his entire career, and he did it. Mamba mentality is not how well you play, it's how well you finish. And we saw the Phoenix Suns finish very strong last year in the bubble, going 8-0. We saw the Phoenix Suns dominate the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, I will preface this always when I talk about this, a healthy Los Angeles Lakers team we know dominates that series because they had no answer for Anthony Davis. They had no answer for a healthy LeBron James. We never got health that entire series, and it seems like we've not gotten health this entire playoff run from every team. And the healthiest team at the end of the day is going to win the NBA championship, which is probably going to be the Bucks or the Suns. But at the end of the day, they went through the Los Angeles Lakers, and they have not lost since the second game of these playoffs. Since the beginning of these playoffs, they have not lost a single game after they lost to the Los Angeles Lakers in the second game. And it is all a direct result from how Devin Booker has played in the clutch. There's been now, they've had big blowout games, but there's been very close games, especially this last game, game one with the Los Angeles Clippers, where Devin Booker had to give them a superstar moment, and he's delivered. That's what we loved about Michael Jordan. That's what we loved about Kobe Bryant. Those guys would have horrible games, and then at the end of the game, if they needed someone to make a superstar moment, they made those moments. Kobe Bryant did that exact same thing. That is why he named it Mamba mentality. Mamba mentality was, I'm going to work harder, and I might fail, I might tremble, but at the end of the day, I'm going to finish ahead of you. And that is what Devin Booker continues to do. And Devin Booker might move up to my number 2 spot. For me, Luka Doncic is so light years ahead of most of these guys that it's very hard for me to put anyone close to that number 1 spot. But Devin Booker, depending how he finishes off this playoff run, in Game 2 tonight against Los Angeles Clippers with no Chris Paul, depending how he finishes, if he's 3 for 24 and he's playing terrible, then he'll stay at this 3rd spot. He's not going to drop. But anyways, this Mamba mentality, how Devin Booker is going to finish this season might move him up in this ranking. But Devin Booker is the closest thing. I love what Stephen A. said. He's the closest thing that we've had to Kobe Bryant. And Devin Booker is wildly underappreciated and underrated in today's NBA. At number 4, this one was tough for me, but I went with Donovan Mitchell. Listen, Donovan Mitchell is another guy at 24 years old who has been wildly disrespected by the NBA community. He is the closest thing we have seen to a Dwayne Wade since Dwayne Wade, except he's Dwayne Wade with a much better three-point shot. He's Dwayne Wade with a consistent three-point shot is probably the best way to put it. But what Donovan Mitchell, the reason people hold back on him is it seems like he always gets hurt in big moments. He's always hobbled by a small injury, by a nick here or there, which is a lot of reasons that Donovan Mitchell has not seen maybe the success that he would like. But putting all of his health needs aside, he was averaging 30 points in his series against the Clippers. Now, this Jazz team, I'm tired of hearing Rudy Gobert is the greatest defensive player that we've seen in the last 20 years. He might win the award, but I don't think Rudy Gobert deserves that award. He is an incredible rim protector. He is a bad all-around defender. There's a big difference there. A big man that can defend all around is somebody that can step out of his comfort zone, which is inside that paint area, and go guard a three-point shot. Make it tough on a three-point shot. Anthony Davis is a much better all-around defender than Rudy Gobert. But this isn't about Rudy Gobert. This Jazz team in general has the biggest problem that all the LeBron James' teams used to have in Cleveland, which is they have a lot of shot takers, but not a lot of shot creators. So the problem with a team like that And it's very similar to the same situation with the Dallas Mavericks. When you only have one guy that can create shots for the others, it will always be shown in the playoffs. The reason the Dallas Mavericks struggled so mightily to close out the Los Angeles Clippers and inevitably lost to the Los Angeles Clippers is all they did was they allowed Luka Doncic to drop 45 on their head, and they just said, hey, all we have to do is protect the paint and make sure that these guys can't drive around us, and they'll have to just chuck up deep threes, and we will live with the results. That is the same thing that the Clippers did with the Utah Jazz, and the biggest flaw the Utah Jazz have. The Utah Jazz are the best regular season team. They have the best regular season record because it is very hard to want to sit and play defense every single night in the NBA. I got that. We're never going to see a team play hard on all ends of the court unless it's the playoffs. That's just the NBA. One of the biggest problems the NBA has, having guys that play every single game like it's a meaningful game. So yes, the Utah Jazz are very, very successful in the regular season because they are going to get a lot more open looks, and there's a reason they're the number one three-point shooting team and take a lot of threes. But in the playoffs, all the Clippers had to do was the exact same thing that they did with the Dallas Mavericks, which is lock down Donovan Mitchell, let him get 30 or 40, that's fine, as long as we can limit Ingles, as long as we can limit these other guys, Bogdanovich, from driving to the paint and just make them chuck up deep threes, eventually your luck is going to run out. So this is why I think Donovan Mitchell is so important to this Utah Jazz team. Is Donovan Mitchell, the only way they won any games against the Los Angeles Clippers was Donovan Mitchell went off for 40, but at the same time was assisting for 6 or 7 plus. So Donovan Mitchell's being asked to carry a team in the playoffs that is uncarryable, unless it's LeBron James. Let's be honest. And even then, LeBron James couldn't carry Matthew Dellavedova or James Jones or all of these guys without the help of Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. LeBron James couldn't carry these guys in Cleveland without Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. Just like Michael Jordan couldn't have done it without Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman. Scottie Pippen, that's what a lot of people don't understand. Scottie Pippen not only took the hard defensive assignments, but Scottie Pippen was able to create his own shot, which always freed up shots for Kerr, which always freed up shots and lanes for Michael Jordan. There is no player that can do it by themselves. And what Luka did and what Donovan Mitchell did was incredible, but at the end of the day, they're being asked to carry franchises simply by themselves. So with all that I've seen from him carrying the Utah Jazz and having to be their sole superstar, Donovan Mitchell deserves to be the 4th best player in the NBA. Under the age of 25, that is. And at number 5. Now this spot is going to rotate a bunch of guys. I'm going to list my tiebreakers because there's a bunch of players that could be the 5th best young player under the age of 25. We either A, have just not seen enough body of work from them because they're just so young and have been in the league so little, or B, they're right on that cusp of moving up. First up in this 5th spot, I put Zion Williamson. Listen, Zion Williamson has been asked to be the savior of the Pelicans instantly. Fans, everybody, you just need to give this young man some time. He's only 20 years old. And even at 20 years old, this dude is shooting 60+% every single night he walks out on the floor. He's a walking 30-point-a-night guy. He's a walking 3 blocks a game guy. He's a great rebounder. Zion Williamson, if he was put into the right situation, is one of the better young guys under the age of 25 that we have in this league. And he has the potential, if he's paired with the right guys, if he's paired with the right team, hopefully they get a much better coach, as we know that Van Gundy is already out of there. If they pair this team up and they form this around a Zion Williamson driven, not necessarily driven offense, but friendly offense, you'll see Zion Williamson dropping 35, 36 a night simply off of layups and dunks. Secondly, I would go with Ja Morant. Ja Morant is an explosive, exciting, much better shooting Westbrook. He's led the Grizzlies to the playoffs. The biggest problem that Ja Morant has right now is just being consistent. But I think he's only 21 years old, so you know his shot is going to start being more consistent. He's working on it, as you can tell. He's an explosive ball handler. He's a great rim finisher. And now that he's got that together, as long as Ja Morant continues to improve his shot, you're going to see him skyrocket on these charts as well. I would go with Jalen Brown, probably my next option. I love what I've seen. Now, we have not seen Jalen Brown really with no help around him like Jayson Tatum. Now, Tatum's been out a couple of games, but he had other guys step up and play really well. But I love Jalen Brown. He's a very explosive player. He's a good defender, but he's an incredible scorer. and that tandem in Boston, if they could find a team to fit around those two guys, would win a championship in the next 3 to 4 years. I'm telling you, they need to figure that stuff out up there. And then lastly, I probably put Darren Fox here. Darren Fox is a very underrated point guard for the Kings. Not only is he one of the fastest human beings I've ever seen with the basketball, but Darren Fox has done a lot for that Kings franchise, and he's a leader. And I love the fact that he can score the basketball. He's a feisty defender. He's hit big game winners, but I love the fact that he's a leader first and foremost. So Darren Fox would probably round out my top 5 under the age of 25. I will be releasing this list on my Instagram in the next few days. I'd love to see your list. Listen, TLR Podcast 615. Send it to us. Put it in your story. Tag the Locker Room Podcast, and we would love to share that on ours as well. There it is, my top 5 under the age of 25. Now, we've got to get to some business with this whole KD. KD's going out. KD's out of the playoffs, and everybody keeps patting KD on the back. Oh, poor KD, poor KD. What I want to know is, where was this voice when LeBron James was doing the exact same thing? So the Brooklyn Nets were bounced from this year's NBA playoffs because karma is a total B, and karma came back to bite the Brooklyn Nets right in the ass. They tried to form a super team. They tried to get James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving, some of the greatest scorers we've had in the last 30, 40 years. They tried to get these guys onto one team and just say, we're going to build a super team, and at the same time, we're going to ship away our entire bench because we don't need the bench. All we need is our superstars, and we'll be fine. The problem, what happens and the problems that can cause is when injuries start to ensue is when the body starts to wear down. And Kevin Durant and James Harden and Kyrie Irving are playing 40-plus minutes every single night. It is inevitable that they are going to be injury prone. Now, Kyrie Irving's injury came down on Giannis's leg. A couple of those things you just can't help. But James Harden's hamstrings, Kyrie Irving's ankle or mental fortitude throughout the entire season. Kevin Durant tweaked his Achilles a couple times. When you try to form an NBA AAU team, basically, this is the kind of stuff that happens. So there's no excuse for Nets fans. I'm tired of everybody saying, well, if they would have had James Harden and Kyrie Irving, great. But you don't. And that's why the NBA championship is so hard to win. That is why any sort of championship is so hard to win. Because there are several teams that I can think of. LeBron James in 2015 when Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love both get hurt. His two best players that are his companions, they both get hurt, done. No one gave LeBron James that excuse in 2015. They said he still should have muscled his way through and won the championship. So you then don't get to say, well, KD gets that excuse. KD gets to be baby. No. If we're going to treat these guys like superstars, then let's treat them all like superstars. It drives me up a wall when everybody is going to do it to LeBron James and everybody won't do it to Kevin Durant, won't do it to Giannis, won't do it to insert the superstar here. Kwai Leonard, for instance. Put the same blame on Kevin Durant that you would LeBron James. Kevin Durant got no excuse. He still had a chance to win that game. Now, his big foot was on the line. I understand he probably can't help that because he's got ginormous feet. But at the end of the day, we've got to put the same blame on Kevin Durant that we would LeBron James. He doesn't get to get patted on the back for losing in the second round after forming a super team, the same way LeBron James didn't get to get patted on the back after losing in the championship when he formed his super team with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. So Kevin Durant hits the shot heard around the world. He ties the game. It goes to overtime. He thought he won the game, but his foot was on the line. James Harden has been basically drug along these last couple of games, and Kyrie Irving is Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving, and Nets fans, you should have known this going into it. Kyrie Irving has never finished a consistent playoff series, but twice in his entire career? Kyrie Irving, twice or 2 or 3 times in his entire NBA career has he finished a playoff series. From start to finish. I mean, from the moment he's entered the playoffs to the championship if they got there. Never once, but like 3 times in his career is he finishing these playoff series. So we knew Kyrie Irving was going to be hurt at some point. That is his track record. It happens 70% of the time. 7 times out of 10, he's going to be injured and not be able to finish a playoff series. So Kevin Durant was asked to do what LeBron James has done every single time in his career except for a handful of times, which is carry a team that without its other superstars is mediocre and not that good and lead them not only to a playoff series win, but to a championship. Not only has LeBron James taken a Matthew Dellavedova as his second best player team to an NBA championship, but they were competitive. Kevin Durant has never once been the guy to take a mediocre team to an NBA championship and even compete. Hell, he couldn't even get out of the second round. Lost to Giannis and the Bucks, who also, surprise, surprise world, aren't that great of a team. They're a good team, but Giannis doesn't have no super team. Giannis is a superstar. And we're going to talk about that later when we talk about our playoff segment here. But that ain't no super team. So Kevin Durant, all he had to do was be the man. He hit the game-tying shot. Great. But he airballed the game winner in overtime. Now here's the deal. And here's what, it just pisses me off because if that was LeBron James, if LeBron James airballs that shot, if LeBron James only scores, 2 points in overtime, if LeBron James has that kind of a meltdown, if LeBron James gets tired, we do nothing but yell at LeBron James and trash LeBron James, say he's one of the worst players, there's no way he could be the GOAT. These guys, you can't get tired, you can't miss those shots. Then we have to start assessing this exact same punishment to all the other superstars. Because Kevin Durant airballed the game winner. Kevin Durant only twice in his career has ever not played with a Hall of Famer. He's either been with Russell Westbrook and James Harden, and I don't care about age. I don't care that they were only, 23, 24, and 22 or something like that when they played together. He had Steven Adams. I don't care that Kevin Durant, he went up to Golden State and played with the greatest shooter of all time, one of the other greatest shooters of all time in Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Sean Livingston, a team that literally won an NBA championship before you got there and beat you, and you went and joined them. So he's never had to be the guy, but at least twice in his career in the playoffs, and one of them was when Russell Westbrook was hurt, and so I think was James Harden, and when Steph Curry went down, but at the end of the day, he still had Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Sean Livingston, Barbosa was there for a little bit, Andre Iguodala, who was, very, very good at the time, Bogut. I mean, he still had that Golden State team. He was asked to carry it, and I put that in quotation marks because that was an argument brought up by somebody, but he really wasn't asked to carry it with that big of a burden. Let's be honest. If you're Kevin Durant, would you rather have to carry the Oklahoma City Thunder with no Westbrook, no Harden, basically you and Steven Adams, or a Golden State team that is very well coached with great role players and Klay Thompson, one of the top 5 shooters of all time? Exactly. You're going to pick Golden State. So only 2 times he has played without his superstar companion. And guess what? He lost every single one of those times except for Golden State when he literally had Klay Thompson bailing him out of games. When he had a team that was so much better before he got there, they're winning championships before he got there, that they really didn't need him. So Kevin Durant was asked to do what LeBron James does every single year until he gets to Miami. What he was asked to do every single year until he got to Los Angeles. When they got Anthony Davis. LeBron James has been asked to drag J.R. Smith, Matthew Dellavedova. Name the person. I mean, there's just Timothy Mozgov. Do you even know who that is, audience? Most of you are probably like, who the hell are you talking about? Timothy Mozgov and Matthew Dellavedova were his 2 best players. J.R. Smith, while J.R. Smith has been good at times, J.R. Smith has never been a consistently good player throughout an entire series. So LeBron James is asked to work magic and drag a subpar team to an NBA championship, and somehow he's supposed to topple the Golden State Warriors. Somehow he's supposed to topple all these great teams that he faces in the playoffs and win an NBA championship. But Kevin Durant's not supposed to. Kevin Durant formed a super team this year, and they're supposed to dominate the league. And guess what? Karma comes back to bite them in the ass, and they end up losing in the second round. Now, I don't care that you don't have a full-strength James Harden. I don't care that you don't have Kyrie Irving. You formed this team. You said this was the place that you're going to make yourself the man. You're going to make yourself the guy, and everybody's going to know your name, and this was how you're going to earn your respect. And you still go out in the second round and lose to the Bucks. The point I'm trying to make here, and this is a point that I've been stressing to everybody, you have got to stop doing to LeBron James what shouldn't be done to everyone. You've got to stop putting these players in such a microscopic such a microscopic. I'm trying to find a word that doesn't involve me swearing. I'm trying to not swear as much, guys. Right? I'm working on myself here. But you put them in such a microscopic lens, and you just want to bash them for every little thing that they have done. Oh, well, Kevin Durant airballed the game winner in overtime. I don't understand it. It's his fault. He went 0 for 6 here. He didn't do this. Okay. He also had 48 points. He's also playing 50-plus minutes, including the overtime. Now, the fact that, Paul George goes 0 for 6 is different because we've seen Pandemic Pete. But guys that are superstars, that are some of the best players in the league, the Giannis's, the Kevin Durant's, the Kwai Leonard's, LeBron James's, we've got to start scrutinizing these guys the exact same across the board, and we've got to stop scrutinizing them for brilliant performances. So I don't want anybody to get this twisted. This isn't hate on KD hour. My point I'm trying to make here is we've got to start assessing the same blame across the board. Treat LeBron James like you would treat Kevin Durant, like you would treat Michael Jordan. If we're talking about the top players in the league at the time, you've got to keep them under the same microscopic scrutinization. Kevin Durant was brilliant this entire playoff series against the Bucks. Guess what? He came up short. He was being asked to play 45 and 50-plus minutes every single night. He was being asked to defend at a high level, to pass at a high level, to score all these points in order to even keep them in it. If KD doesn't go for 48, if the Bucks actually had a brain and could close out a basketball game and stop blowing 10 and 11-point leads, they would have dominated several of those games. Kevin Durant played brilliantly, but guess what? His role players didn't step up. And now we realize how great LeBron James is, considering he has carried teams like that with a lot less better shooters than Joe Harris's and Jeff Green's and Blake Griffin, who still, for some reason, winded back the clock and played a great playoff series this year. We've got to stop doing it because LeBron James is taking a lot worse even further. In conclusion, appreciate greatness while it's here. Because Kevin Durant and LeBron James, they don't have 10, 15-plus years to play basketball anymore. The clock is slowly ticking on how long they're going to be able to play, and injuries are going to factor in, and it's going to be a sad day when Kevin Durant and LeBron James are no longer in the league. So let's stop scrutinizing these players for having mind-blowing performances that in 10, 15 years, 20 years, we're going to be saying that was one of the greatest playoff performances we've ever seen. Kevin Durant was literally a toe away from winning that game. It was remarkable. If he could have any sort of help from his team, that's all it takes. So let's stop putting LeBron James and Kevin Durant and Michael Jordan, all these guys, under such hard scrutiny when we are not appreciating the greatness that they are. Can we appreciate that this is one of the craziest, weirdest, wildest NBA postseasons that we have had in recent memory? We've had 2 Game 7s. The Brooklyn Nets took on the Bucks. We had the 76ers versus the Atlanta Hawks, who are now in the Eastern Conference Final. I can't even describe how wild that is. Now we have the Clippers versus the Suns. We've had a bunch of games going a bunch of series going 7 games. We've had all-star after all-star after superstar being hurt. And that is why, in order to win these NBA playoffs, it is going to be who can ever limp over the line a little bit quicker. who can ever stay a little bit more healthy is going to win this NBA championship this year. It has been wild and riddled with injuries, no doubt about that. But at the end of the day, injuries are a part of championships. So we can't say, well, this team lost because of XYZ, or this team won because of XYZ. At the end of the day, we've got to take it for face value. Whoever's on the court is playing, and they are professionals. They've got to go out there and try and win a championship. So I want to talk a little bit about the series we have going on. The Suns versus the Clippers. Now, we saw what happened in Game 1. Devin Booker, absolutely phenomenal. Now, no Kwai Leonard, no Chris Paul. And it's hard to argue which one's more important. Chris Paul does what Devin Booker was asked to do, but doesn't usually do. Devin Booker is a scorer. He is a Kobe, right? He is someone that can go get you 30, 40 a night if he wants to, but he's not also asked to facilitate. He's not also asked to rebound. That's why Devin Booker's performance was one of the greatest I've ever seen last game against the Los Angeles Clippers, because that is not who Devin Booker is usually. Chris Paul is very, very, not only leadership-wise, but play style-wise, a massive part of what the Phoenix Suns do and do successfully. The Phoenix Suns are an old school basketball team. They are going to dribble, drive. They got a big man in DeAndre Ayton who has been playing out of his mind these playoffs. I love this guy. And I love the simple fact that he just slams it with such ferocity every time he has an open dunk. I love that. That's what Shaq used to do. That's what Yao Ming used to do. Now, Yao Ming was already an inch away from the goal, so it was a lot easier for Yao Ming. But when a big man gets a ball and gets an open dunk, I don't want these sissy dunks where they're just kind of tapping it in. I want DeAndre Ayton flying in and just slamming it, just like you would see on a 2K video game. But the Phoenix Suns play just hard-nosed, old-school basketball, and Chris Paul is the leader of that style. Chris Paul has always been successful. Now, the important thing for Chris Paul is to just get back out there. Because if Chris Paul gets back out there before Kwai Leonard can get back out there, I believe the Phoenix Suns might even sweep this Clippers team. This Clippers team, with Markieff Morris now apparently banged up, his knee sore, he's a game-time decision, without Kwai Leonard to not necessarily close games, because we've not really seen Kwai Leonard close a lot of games, without Kwai Leonard's presence to just give them an extra 25 points a night, it is going to be nigh to impossible for this Los Angeles Clippers team to win this series without Kwai Leonard out there. Now, I can't say it's impossible because we've seen the Clippers come back from 0-2 twice now, which has never been done before. But if they go down 0-2, if the Suns are able to conquer tonight's game, I believe that the Suns are going to possibly sweep the Los Angeles Clippers because Chris Paul is coming back in Game 3. We've already heard that. So whatever Game 3 on Thursday, Chris Paul is going to be back. And all Chris Paul is going to do is just up this Suns' everything. Their points, their rebounding, their three-point chances, everything. Because Chris Paul is that high of an impact player. Chris Paul is a very unique player in the sense that he is very close to LeBron James and that whatever team he goes to has the potential to be a contender. Look at the Oklahoma City Thunder. Dumpster fire, he brings them to a playoff team. Look at the Phoenix Suns. He joins the Suns, then they're on the Western Conference Finals. Chris Paul's just had bad luck his entire career. But if the Clippers do not get Kwai Leonard back, and now this is my problem with Kwai Leonard, is we never know what's going on with Kwai Leonard. His knee, we don't know how long it's going to be. We're not hearing any facts. He's with his team doctors. Kwai Leonard has done this several times in his career where he gets hurt and then disappears from the world. And that is one of my biggest problems with Kwai Leonard, is if it's even a little sore, he's out. So clearly there's more issues than we probably know of publicly. But if Kwai Leonard cannot come back this entire series, and if Markieff Morris is out for tonight's game, and they go down 0-2, it's goodbye. It's get out the brooms. We're getting ready for probably a sweep because Chris Paul is coming back on Thursday. But I just believe that Devin Booker and the Phoenix Suns are playing a much higher level of basketball. I believe DeAndre Ayton is a much bigger factor than Zubats. And we saw what a train wreck Cousins was, besides a little bit of offense, 5 fouls in 12 minutes. I believe that the Phoenix Suns have everything that they need to put the series away and put it away quick and have everything they need to win an NBA championship. But, like I said, Kwai Leonard coming back, that's something. Morris getting back healthy, that's also something. And I cannot count the Los Angeles Clippers out. I will admit, Playoff P has showed up. Not way off P, not pandemic P, but playoff P has showed up. So I'm very interested to see. I'm going to predict that the Phoenix Suns win this thing in 5. I'm not going to go full sweep here because I do believe Kwai Leonard might come back maybe game 4. And at that point, Kwai Leonard's good enough for a game or two. But I'm going to go the Suns in 5. Now let's go to the other side of the bracket. This should be an absolute sweep for the Bucks. I'm sorry, the Hawks have had a good run. It's been a good charity case, it seems like. The Hawks have squeaked by. The 76ers are one of the biggest disappointments in basketball. We'll talk about that in just a second. But I believe the Bucks are going to sweep the Atlanta Hawks. The biggest problem is they have not one person to even come close to Giannis Antetokounmpo. And if Giannis plays what he did against the Nets in the last 2 games, which is back to the basket, I'm going to drive and get layups, drive and get and ones, and then I'm just going to go 7 for 13 in the free throw line. 8 for 12, then that's all they need. Chris Middleton, of course, has to play well, and he's been playing well. Drew Holiday is not going to be a deciding factor. Now, he almost was in the Nets game, and he almost cost them, except for coming up big in the 4th. but he's not going to be a deciding factor in this playoff series. As long as Giannis does what Giannis does, this Bucks team should sweep the Atlanta Hawks. Listen, I like Trae Young. I like what I've seen from those guys. Bogdanovich has played very, very well. Collins he's gone out of this world. I like what I've seen from these guys, but at the end of the day, they just really don't have anybody, and they don't match up well with the Bucks. And the Bucks should have a very easy road to the Eastern Conference Finals championship and ultimately to the NBA championship. Now, the 76ers, and we can't really dive too much into Ben Simmons here because he is a whole subject in and of himself. They are one of the most pathetic teams I've seen in all of basketball. Doc Rivers, he just has a track record of losing good close games. He can't close out games. He can't win game sevens. That's just Doc Rivers' track record. Maybe the Clippers were onto something thinking that Doc Rivers can't get the job done. Ben Simmons is ultimately the reason that the 76ers lost this series. He was afraid to take a shot. You can't be afraid to take a dunk. Ben Simmons had an easy spin, easy dunk. They're down 4. That puts it to 2, swings momentum back into their favor, and he passes it up and throws it to a cutting. I don't even know who the guy was. That's how little I know of this 76ers team. Joel Embiid, for all of his faults, and he does get hurt a lot, and Joel Embiid is definitely a complainer, and we've seen him hit and miss. Joel Embiid can only do so much when he has a point guard handling the basketball that cannot shoot a shot, that is afraid to take shots. If this 76ers team wants to win a championship next year, super simple. Trade Ben Simmons immediately. Get you a point guard. Get you a CJ McCollum. I don't care. You don't even need a point guard at this point. Go get Rajon Rondo for a year and get CJ McCollum, a scoring guard that can create his own shot. Because the only way to have a dominant big man in today's game is with a dominant guard. Jokic, Jamal Murray. It's super simple. I mean, Jokic, Jamal Murray are the greatest example of a big man with a star guard. And then guess what? The star guard can get whatever he wants because the big man's going to be opening and clearing lanes. And the second they crack down on the guard, now Jokic has one-on-ones, and that is just all day. Joel Embiid's arguably the best big man in the NBA, and he is getting zero help from his star point guard. I've defended Ben Simmons till the day that I died. I thought I was going to be a Ben Simmons defender, and I can't anymore. I'm done. Ben Simmons won't take even a dunk. Can't shoot free throws. His shot looks terrible. And from what we're hearing around the league and from what we're hearing from sources, he's impossible to work with. He's a big baby, and he doesn't want to be told that he's not good at something. So the 76ers have a real problem. Ben Simmons is a big crybaby who doesn't want to fix anything, and now they have you know that when babies go through that terrible 2 stage, that is a very critical stage when you're parenting, right? Because if you allow them to throw the tantrums and to go crazy, that's what they're always going to do. But if you nip it at the bud instantly, if you say, no, you're not going to not learn how to shoot. You're not going to not learn how to shoot free throws. You're not going to not take wide open dunks. If you don't cut that behavior off, well, guess what? It leads into the playoffs. And I feel really bad for Ben Simmons, and the 76ers were my pick to go to the championship, and they should be there. But they wouldn't. I mean, they're losing to the Atlanta Hawks at this point. Ben Simmons was pathetic. He wasn't even good defensively. So if I'm the 76ers, I'm trading away Ben Simmons as soon as I possibly can. Go get Lonzo Ball. That's not a joke. Go get Lonzo Ball and trade for Lonzo Ball and go get yourself another shooter, a shot creating shooter. Get rid of Danny Green. Trade Seth Curry. I don't care. Go get yourself someone who can be dynamic. Get yourself a point guard and then go get yourself a scoring wing that can create his own shot. CJ McCollum would fit great there. If you want to keep Ben Simmons, I don't know why you would, then trade Joel Embiid because it's never going to work when both of them are on the same team. Joel Embiid needs a dynamic point guard that can get him the rock but can also shoot the basketball. And then on the other side, we already talked a little bit about the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz are not built for the playoffs. Donovan Mitchell can't be the only one that can create shots. While Jordan Clarkson is a great shot creator for himself, he is not a very good shot creator for anybody else. He's not a good passer of the basketball. Joe Ingles is not a good passer of the basketball. Bogdanovich is not a good passer of the basketball. Like, all these guys just aren't good passers of the basketball. They're not good self-shot creators. And Rudy Gobert is the most overrated defensive player, and I will praise that until the day that I die. Rudy Gobert is a great rim defender. Rudy Gobert is not a great defender. Those are two different things. Anthony Davis is a great defender. He can defend the wing. He can also defend the inside and protect the rim. Rudy Gobert can protect the rim. He can't defend the wing. He gets eaten alive if you take him outside of the rim. Go 3 feet past the rim and it's game over. So the Utah Jazz, that story is a little bit more clear. We know that the Utah Jazz are limited, and what I would do if I'm the Utah Jazz, I would go trade Jordan Clarkson away while his stock is high and see if you can get another shot-creating guard. Now, Mike Conley was hurt, and we all know that he's been hurt this entire series, so maybe with Mike Conley, they have 2 shot creators in Mitchell and Conley that can really do some damage, but I don't know that we're going to be able to see that combo much longer. Listen, Conley's not a young, spry guy anymore. Conley's one of those guys that's probably on his way to a Los Angeles Lakers team because he doesn't have time to wait around for this Jazz team to whip up into shape. So I am going Bucks in 4. I'm going full sweep here. I'm just going to go with my gut, and I'm going Suns in 5. At the end of the day, if Kwai Leonard doesn't come back, and I will preface this by saying, if Kwai Leonard does not come back, and let's say, for instance, CP3 does not come back, then now we have an interesting series. But if Kwai Leonard doesn't come back and CP3, which we are being told is coming back in Game 3, it's just too tough of a road for the Los Angeles Clippers to drive down. It's too hard of a hill to climb. So I'm going Suns in 5, Bucks in 4, and then we'll talk about the NBA Finals when it gets there. Let's hope my predictions are right this time. But listen, I appreciate you all joining me on the show today. Follow us on our social media. It's super simple now, at TLR Podcast 615, all one word, so you don't have to go searching for our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is. It's all one thing. So check us out on there. If you like us, share us with a friend. I can't express that enough. Listen, if you like us, put something down in the comments below as well. Let people know that you're listening. I'm glad that you joined me today. Once again, guys, I'm Jacob Courtwright. This is The Locker Room.